the Popess, High Priestess, also sometimes depicted as Juno. This is often considered the most holy of the Triumph cards and has an esoteric meaning of duality. Hello, I'm Michael J. Auger, creator of the Allcento Tarot, and today let's take a closer look at the second card of the Tarot's major arcana. The Visconti-Sforza is one of the oldest still existing examples of the Tarot. Most of the Visconti Tarot major arcana depict Greco-Roman mythology or significant socio-political events in and around Milan, both being relevant to the Visconti family. However, this card is neither of these things. The idea of a female pope, suggesting the feminine aspect of the spiritual as equal to the masculine, was a radical concept for medieval Christianity. I personally think this gives weight to the idea that the Visconti decks were based on even earlier tarot decks created by a collaboration of diverse enlightened minds. Tarot scholar Gertrude Moakley believed the person depicted here may have been Sister Mayfreda, a relative of the Visconti family who was actually elected pope by the small Lombard sect of the Guglielmites. According to Moakley, their leader, Guglielmo of Bohemia, died in Milan in 1281. Guglielmo's followers believed Sister Mayfreda was the incarnation of the Holy Spirit sent to inaugurate the new age of the Spirit. However, others have suggested the attire she is dressed in may be the Franciscan habit of the Poor Clares, and this card may actually depict St. Agnes of Prague, who was the supposed sister of Guglielmo, as a more subtle and less heretical connection. The others have suggested connections with Joan of Arc, or the story of St. Joan. Both were women who disguised themselves as men. Whoever she may happen to be, she is seen holding a closed sacred book with her left hand. This suggests a veil of mystery representing the hidden nature of the spiritual. She can be thought of as a gatekeeper between the duality of what is seen and what is unseen. Early woodblock Marseille-style versions of this card also emphasize the idea of duality. Here, the Popess holds her book of wisdom open for those she deems worthy, but sits in front of a curtain that separates us from the inner temple mysteries. I see the pure concept of unity, Triumph 1, now divided into duality, Triumph 2. On the highest level, everything is connected and united together, but in this material existence that we call reality, there are the illusions of duality, division, and separation. Just as the preceding magician card can be thought of as an active Christ figure, the Popess can be thought of as the Holy Spirit, or a passive expression of the divine. Hermetic philosophy focused on the idea of striving to purify and unite the sexes to complete the great work and achieve the rebus. Gnostic Christianity also viewed the dual nature of the divine as represented by both the masculine Christ and Sophia, the female bride. However, as Christianity became less popular in certain cities, such as Besançon, France, card makers replaced the Pope and Popess cards with pagan substitutes of Juno and Jupiter. Juno is the ancient Roman goddess of love and marriage, who is also a warrior and protector of the state. She is both feminine and fearless. This dual nature is fitting for the arcana. Her sacred animal was the peacock, which is a bird with a secret mesmerizing power hidden in its folded feathers. Moving forward in time, the tarot deck created by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Colman Smith follows the tradition of the secret order they were members of, and so this card is renamed the High Priestess. But because of Waite's Christian preferences, she's dressed in blue and white, just as Mary, the mother of Christ, was often depicted in art. She sits between two pillars of Solomon's temple. The pillar to the left is marked with a B for Boaz, the dark pillar of negation. The pillar to the right is marked with the J for Yod King, the light pillar of affirmation. This represents the duality of both force and fulcrum. There's strength in separation. The separated pillars hold up the temple roof. However, if forced together, the roof collapses. The two powers destroy each other. To even further emphasize the theme of duality, the High Priestess holds a partially hidden scroll of the Torah and sits in front of the temple veil that partially hides the lunar sea behind her. The spiritual truth is that there's just one ocean. However, this truth is veiled by the illusion of the material world of opposites. Duality is also symbolized by an equal-sided solar cross on her breast that represents the crossroads of the spiritual and the material. She wears the Egyptian headdress of Hathor that also can be seen as symbolizing the three main phases of the moon. The veil she sits in front of is embroidered with images of pomegranates and date palms, both considered food of the dead. Queen Hathor feeds the deceased with milk from palm fronds, and pomegranates are linked to the myth of Persephone. Persephone ate of this fruit, which forced her to spend half the year in the underworld. And during this time, her mother, Demeter, who is the goddess of the earth, mourns her absence. And so the earth dies as the seasons change to winter. However, Persephone is permitted to return home for half the year, and as her mother rejoices, the earth is reborn, and the seasons change back to summer. The High Priestess provides the wisdom of the Eleusinian mysteries, revealing this repeating cycle, which provides freedom from the fear of death. The depiction of the High Priestess in the Thoth Tarot, created by Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris, continues the theme of duality. Here she's clothed only in a luminous veil of light. But it is important to understand that this dazzling light is not a perfect manifestation of the eternal spirit, but rather as the veil which hides that spirit with its brilliance. This card refers to the feminine moon, which is a reflection of the sun. The moonlight creates a sense of mystery. This is a subtle, silent, passive, and visionary energy. The High Priestess is a gateway to truth that cannot be approached with a logical thinking mind. This card represents the most spiritual form of Isis, the eternal virgin. She also corresponds with the Greek goddess Artemis and the Roman goddess Diana. And you can see her hunting bow, which is also a musical instrument, resting on her lap. At the bottom of the card are crystals, seeds, pods, all symbolizing the beginnings of life. And in the center of all of this is a camel, because the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn links this card to the Hebrew letter Gimel. Just as the moon is the ship of the sky, the camel is considered the ship of the desert, allowing trade and communication across vast distances of void. And here is the High Priestess of the Allcento Tarot. In this version, the symbolism from earlier incarnations is carried forward. She sits between a dark pillar on the left that holds blue water at its top, and a light pillar on the right that holds red fire. These opposite forces combine to create a purple mist in the middle where a single silver star shines. Below this hangs the temple veil, embroidered with pomegranates and date palms, arranged in the pattern of the Kabbalah tree of life. With one hand, she holds a pair of keys of heaven and hell. With the other hand, she holds a book of mysteries that is slightly open, but the words on the pages remain hidden. On its cover is a taijitu that symbolizes the dualistic nature of existence. The word arcana is defined as a secret or mystery, and it's derived from the Latin arca, meaning chest. To the side of the High Priestess, a peacock with folded feathers sits upon a locked chest. The High Priestess is an archetype that represents the collective unconscious and the more subtle currents that we can tap into, but only when the High Priestess deems us worthy. She's the gatekeeper of the subconscious. It is said that all water depicted in the tarot originates with her and the lunar sea that is peeking from behind her veil, and in this depiction also flowing from her golden key. We may fish from these waters, and if deemed worthy, may catch very large fish indeed. Similar to the earlier versions of this card, there are crossed lines over her breast, reinforcing the concept of opposites existing in harmony. I personally see the Hermetic idea of equilibrium as one of the most important, if not the most important, themes of the tarot. The Triumph cards begin with the most spiritual, masculine, and feminine expressions, the Magician and the High Priestess, and they will next continue into the more material aspects, the Empress and the Emperor. I invite you to continue the journey with me, and if you'd like to find out more about me and my Allcento tarot, please visit my website, offbeatartwork.com. And also, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to share your support. And until next time, brightest blessings on your spiritual journey.